Hi, I'm Bill Johnson. I'm the senior pastor at Bethel Church in Redding, California, which is about 3 hours north of San Francisco. I think it was the summer of 1994, I had a pastor friend who had traveled back here, and he brought back a report of what God was doing. And so I purposed in my heart at that moment, at the earliest chance, I needed to try to fly back here. And so it ended up being the following February that I, with a couple friends, flew back here and attended a conference and was just powerfully touched by the Lord during that conference. What happened for me is we started to have a similar outpouring of the Spirit at the church I pastored, is in a city called Weaverville. It's a mountain community. And in 1987, we had this unusual visitation following 2 John Wimber conferences that I attended. When I got home, things just blew up. But it was sporadic over the next many years. And so when I heard about what was happening in Toronto, I asked the Lord, I said, God, if you'll touch me again, I'll never change the subject. Because I realized that what I did is I took the move of God and I added it to what we were already doing, instead of making it the heart and soul of who we were. And so I made that promise to the Lord. And so when I came to Toronto, the Lord really impacted me. I received prayer every chance I got. I think I was prayed for 5 times the first night. You know, I just get in every line I could and received a tremendous sense of presence and peace. But I had no dramatic encounters. That was a number of months later. But I knew that I had just seen what I was going to give the rest of my life to. But when I went home, I began at that moment to never change the subject again, but to make the outpouring of the Spirit, that which God was doing in the earth, the only thing I lived for. But it was all ignited here. It was all that fire, you know, of passion. I didn't come as a burnt out pastor. I heard the testimonies, the stories of so many that came that were just, you know, just at wit's end. And I wasn't at that place. We were in a really good place. But I did come hungry because I knew there was so much more. When I walked into the room, I realized, this is it. This is it. So I gave the rest of my life to this. And so that is really where the Lord rekindled what He deposited in us earlier in 1987, and then just took it to a whole nother level. What's happened here in Toronto is there has been there's been success in creating a culture. And what we're finding is we're so similar. What's going on here is so similar to what I see happening in our own place in Redding. And it's amazing to be able to partner together and to see such a broad spectrum of ministries that touch the poor, that touch the business world, that touch the young and the old, and that's all about equipping and training. And what we've been doing is there's been a fair amount of cross-pollination that's been happening, not just with John and Carol and my wife and myself, but other ministries within our churches where we've spent time together in each other's houses, and there's been impartation, there's been a real impact of various kinds of ministries on us in Redding. And just the whole, you know, all you have to do is mention Toronto, and there's this whole amazing picture that comes, you know, to our folks of what God's released into the earth. And He chose this manger, this Bethlehem, if you will, to birth something that would be released into the earth. And we feel, as a whole church family, a real strong affection and connection with what God's doing here in Toronto and at Airport Christian Fellowship. We are just really, really pleased to be partners, not just the Arnotts and the Johnsons, but the whole church family. Our folks just identify with Toronto. They just, even those who have never been here, you know, it's like they just know that's our family. And then one of the privileges that I have doing is I get to go to some of the Catch the Fire events and Catch the Wave, which is an amazing event. You know, we get to catch something wherever we go, and it's really been a treat to partner with what God is doing here that you guys are exporting all over the world, and to step in line to that anointing that you guys carry for exporting, to step into that anointing you guys have, and to come under, so to speak, and to serve the various nations or groups of people. That's been amazing to me. And I always try to, when I get an invitation to Catch the Fire or Catch the Wave, I always try to prioritize that if it's at all possible, because I just love to be a part of what's happening here and what's happening from here. So we have very, very strong appreciation, thankfulness, affection for Toronto, for Airport Christian Fellowship, for Catch the Fire, and everything else, the other million things that you're doing. We just like it all and are just your biggest fans. Now, with this outpouring of the Spirit, there's a culture that is forming that is it's what we refer to as a revival culture. Because the heart of God is for a culture to be formed in an outpouring of the Spirit, because then that culture actually helps to sustain a movement. If you look at various cults around the world, they exist because they succeeded in developing a culture around their beliefs. And the culture is where the church has failed sometimes, because what we experience in the church doesn't dramatically change how we do life outside of the four walls of the church. So we're experiencing a transformation where there's an infiltration into our city, which bringing transformation change to a whole city. So, but it's coming out of that, the experience with the Lord, the encounters with the Lord, the manifestations are included, all the above, the miracles, all of it is just changing how we approach life. And all of that came and really started as it was ignited in our time here.